Is it recording yet? Are we recording? Are we live streaming?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and thank you very much for making time for us today. Senator Bridges, Representative Froelich, thank you very much for your time today. And thank you for members of council as well as members from Englewood staff for making time as well. I think what we wanted to do today is, I'm not sure if everybody received the agenda, but I wanted to go ahead and just start off by just welcome everyone. And I also want to introduce our staff as well as our city council. And I'll move forward with that. After that, Representative Froelich will ask you to do a short introduction of yourself. Senator Bridges, you'll follow up with that as well. And then from there, Representative Froelich will ask for an update from your office, followed by you, Representative Bridges, and then we'll finish the meeting by asking just some questions or some thoughts that are on our mind from the city of Englewood perspective on what we're looking to accomplish, at least within the legislative session. So any questions before we get started? Perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and just ask each members of council to introduce themselves before going to staff, and I'll be calling on each member of council, and we'll just go down by districts and then the at-large. So, and Senator Bridges, Representative Froelich, I think you both know me. Othaniel Sierra, City Council Representative for District 1 here in Englewood, as well as Mayor for the city. And I'm thankful for your service to the state, and thank you for everything you've done for the city. So thank you. We'll move on to District 2, Member Noonekamp.
Hello to both of you. It's good to see you both again. I represent District 2, which you can think about the northeast corner of the city. So north of Hampton to Yale, roughly Broadway over to University, serving in my first term, and hope you both are enjoying your snow day.
Perfect. Member Anderson.
Good afternoon, Joe Anderson, City Council in Englewood, representing District 3. Thanks for joining us.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Howdy, I'm Steve Ward. I represent Council District 4 and serve as Mayor Pro Tem. Council District 4 is in Southwest Englewood. Don't have the exact same borders that Councilmember Noonekamp mentioned, but think about the far southwest corner of the city from roughly Bellevue and Broadway across to Federal and then north to about Oxford.
Thank you. Member Russell.
Good afternoon. I'm Rita Russell. I'm a council member at large. I've been on council for 7 years, so I'm finishing up my second term, and it's good to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Woodward.
Good afternoon, Jim Woodward, City Council at large. This is my second time around and my 11th year on council.
Thank you for the boomerang, Member Woodward. I think Member Wink had a conflict with work, so she's not able to join us today. City Manager Lewis, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mayor. Sean Lewis, City Manager.
City Attorney Niles.
I'm City Attorney Tamara Niles.
Director Power.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brad Power. I'm the Director of the Community Development Department for the city, and we administer the city's planning, building, redevelopment, economic development, and housing programs. Nice to be with you.
Director Van Rye.
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Van Rye. I'm the Director of Englewood Utilities as well as South Platte Renew. South Platte Renew is a joint venture between the city of Englewood and the city of Littleton. It's a regional wastewater facility. And it's good to see you all again, and look forward to talking today.
Perfect. Chief Watson.
Yeah, Sam Watson, Chief of Police. Welcome, everybody.
Director King.
Good afternoon, everybody. Henry King, Director of Information Technology.
All right, and Director Rochelle.
Good afternoon, everybody. Victor Rochelle, Director of Public Works.
And Krista, did you want to introduce yourself as well?
Happy to. Hi, everyone. Krista Gravy, Executive Assistant for the City Manager and our City Council.
Oh, and I just realized I'm missing Director Lowe. Director Lowe.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jackie Lowe, Director of Finance for the City of Englewood.
Perfect. Did I get everyone on our side or did I miss anyone? I think that's everyone. Perfect. Well, I'll pass it over to you, Representative Froelich.
Well, thank you all. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces and new faces as well. So we really appreciate, I know Senator Bridges will just reiterate this, but we really appreciate this opportunity and hope that we continue to have ongoing communication at your will. And I am Meg Froelich. I represent House District 3, which after redistricting, which just occurred, is now Sheridan, Englewood, and Cherry Hills, and a sliver of Denver. And I am entering my third term, so I'm at the midway point of my 8 years, and I am a mother of 3 Littleton Public Schools graduates who are now allegedly off and running. Well, one has a little bit more to do in schooling wise in college, and former documentary filmmaker and community activist, principally involved since moving here in 1999 in gun violence prevention and reproductive rights. And I'll tell you a little bit more related to politics and the State House when we get to that part.
Sounds good, Representative Froelich. Thank you very much and welcome. Senator Bridges.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for taking the time today. I am really grateful it's a snow day because normally I'm on the Joint Budget Committee, which means I am packed. I basically start work when I wake up and I don't end work until I go to sleep at night. And we have binders here. This is a very light binder for reading for tomorrow, and that is something we get every day. I know you all can relate with the work sessions, but this is a gift that I get to be here with you all today. So I'm so glad that I could make it. State Senator Jeff Bridges, I grew up here, went to Littleton Public Schools K through 12, worked for Ken Salazar in the US Senate where I handled military and small business policy, and then went to divinity school. So I'm the only person in the state Senate with a master's of divinity. It was a super interreligious, diverse place. It was all about finding those shared values and bringing folks together around those values. And really, that's the job that we do in the state legislature. It's all about finding common ground, bringing folks together. And I've been doing that for the past 6 years. Was first in House District 3 in its previous formation, and I'm now in Senate District 26, which is Sheridan, Englewood, Cherry Hills, Greenwood Village, and a little bit of Southwest Denver and a little bit of Southeast Denver and some unincorporated parts between Aurora and Denver. So it is an extremely diverse district. It is it's new. I used to have a little bit of Aurora and Littleton, so the Denver part is new, but the Sheridan, Englewood, Cherry Hills, Greenwood Village part is the old HD3 district, and very happy to represent all those folks that we still have here. So I'm happy to talk about legislation I'm working on this year, but I have over those 6 years, big highlights: fully funded full-day kindergarten for every Colorado kid, paid sick leave for every Colorado employee, guaranteed. We did a small business grant program that helped keep folks alive during the pandemic, passed the Middle Income Housing Authority, which I hope to talk more about later, passed that last year, and it is just coming into effect this year. And I hope you all welcome some of those projects in. So look forward to the conversation today. And more importantly, look forward to hearing from all of you about what it is you're looking for me and Meg to be doing for you and the people of Englewood over these next 116 days, 115 days.
Thank you very much for that, Senator Bridges. Yeah, somewhere around there. I also want to just note that you also were key in the safety stop last year. So that was another one that was pretty true to or close to my heart. So being a cyclist.
That's good. And the Restaurant Recovery Act was inspired by a conversation I had with Erica Zerke at the Englewood Grant. So Englewood is a key player in many of the bills that I work on and pass.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. And so Representative Froelich, I guess I'll pass it to you in terms of what your office is working towards here this year.
Thanks. we don't really have offices. We have like one person who is in my case a Jill of all trades and wonderful. But anyway, yes, my big office and my huge staff and I are working on a couple things. So the big news is that we have incorporated housing into the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee. So it was Transportation and Local Government, and both the Senate and House committees have been renamed to include housing, which is in deference to the fact that that will probably be our biggest agenda item across the board at the legislature. So that's going to be just so important to work in conjunction with you guys and with our other municipalities and counties, because it is going to evolve a lot of land use discussions and the role of the state versus local government in making those land use decisions. So prepare for some robust discussions on that.
Collaboration and conversation.
Yes, it is a key piece. I don't know how many of you were able to catch or read the governor's remarks yesterday in the State of the State, but it's a key piece of his agenda as well. And I think this time around, being firmly centered around climate change and our goals around climate change involving housing, land use, transportation, and all of those intersections. So that'll be terrifically important. So I'm very, very pleased to be chairing that committee and to be and for the renaming of it in housing. I am purposefully actually trying not to carry bills in that space because I'm trying to run a very fair and open committee, and I'm trying not for there to be predetermined outcomes. That being said, we have historic majorities, crazy historic majorities. We are a half a person away from a supermajority in the Senate, and we have a supermajority in the House. So it is a new era. And then my other committee is Energy and Environment, which is a space I've been in and very much enjoy. And I'll be doing a bill on behalf of South Platte Renew, which is having the same challenges as other water treatment facilities in terms of flushable wipes, which are not flushable. So look forward to working with you on that, Peter. And then I have some other bills in the environment space, but they aren't in the land use housing space. And then, as my friend said, I've ended up living at the intersection of gun violence prevention and reproductive rights. So that's fun if you want a really full voicemail box. But we hope to make progress on that. And it's kind of not related to municipal issues, although if you're the city of Pueblo, you just recently dipped your toe into that debate. And sometimes there are municipal and local issues in terms of enforcement of our gun violence prevention previous legislation, which you also heard about in the wake of Club Q and in Colorado Springs. But anyway, I was on Greenwood Village City Council for 2 terms. And so I have an appreciation for the hard work that goes into this supposedly part-time job, and look forward to further conversations.
Representative Folek, are you sure you don't have an office? That's quite a bit that you're carrying there.
Well, you're looking at my main office right now. We do. I mean, I have a very nice one, so I shouldn't complain. I actually have a physically nice office that I welcome all of you to come to. And I should say I ran into Dave Lewis at MLK Marade, and he reminded me that they've won an award for their work in their department, and that's the kind of thing Senator Bridges and I love to highlight. We're going to be celebrating the retirement of Wendy Rubin. We want to let folks know, especially Englewood, which both Senator Bridges and I just have a soft spot in our heart for. And I think One Barrel was in a promo about the Restaurant Recovery Act. So when we're not actually eating there, we're also just applauding and championing. So yes.
And lots of eating. There's also a lot of that.
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
to echo
Senator.
Meg. Just to echo Meg. We don't have offices. It's really nice. People think we have teams of people to support us and all the work we do. And I get emails and voicemails where people are like, "Can you have someone on your staff call me?" I'm like, "Someone on my staff? You mean my singular staffer Taylor? I'm sure she'd love to call you, or I can just call you." I send emails to people and they'll respond back and they'll be like, "If it's really you," like it's really me. Thank you very much. It would, the members of Congress have huge staffs. We do not have huge staffs. That being said, we do take on huge issues and we do a lot of work that has major impacts on the people of Colorado. Last year, we spent almost $3.5 billion of federal dollars here in the state on things like healthcare affordability, housing affordability, and we're going to this year not have all of those federal funds. So my job on the budget committee, the last few years, the budget folks got to be Santa Claus, just handing out money to anyone who wanted it. And this year I'm the Grinch. So it is a real difference from years past. I'm focusing primarily on that budget. We have tens of billions of dollars in the Colorado state budget that it is the governor, the 6 members of the Joint Budget Committee that make the first pass on that. It goes through the legislature. So every legislator votes on it. It is required by Constitution to be balanced. So we do pass a balanced budget every year, but it is a huge responsibility. It is one of the most challenging, difficult, and enjoyable things that I have ever done. I'm absolutely loving it, but it's an enormous amount of work. I am also going to be writing some bills though. So I've got a bill I'm working on with Senator Paul Lundeen around making sure that every kid in Colorado high schools has the opportunity and I would say graduates, guaranteed to graduate with some kind of career connected education beyond just high school, whether that's an industry recognized certificate, an associate's degree, or some kind of internship that leads to a job. So I've been working on that for 6 years. It was in the governor's speech yesterday. So that's a good, we continue to move forward with that goal. And then I've got a bill to modify slightly the Middle Income Housing Authority from last year to allow P3s. Basically, we know that mixed use development is the best kind of development. The Middle Income Housing Authority owns housing, does not own retail space. So if we want to make sure that those first floors are retail, you need to have some kind of a P3 where someone else can own that retail space and the Middle Income Housing Authority can own the affordable middle income housing in that development. So that's one big change. Plus, we're going to put legislators on the board, just like Chaffa has. And I'm hoping that the majority leader in the Senate picks me. We'll see. And then I've got a bill to simplify sales tax. I've been chair and of the Sales and Use Tax Simplification Task Force. It's a mouthful. But it is not nearly as complicated as the tax structure, the sales tax structure we have here in Colorado. It is a mess because of special districts, counties, state, and then municipalities, just the overlap of these things. We have hundreds of different tax setups in the state because of those overlaps, and helping businesses figure out how much they owe because of the waiver decision from Idaho, which required destination taxing instead of origin taxing, to help sort of create a digital front end to the insanity that is our sales tax code. We can't fix the sales tax code because that is local control. That's not something we can mess with at the state level, but we can make a much simplified front end, an interface for businesses of all sizes to make sure that they are following the law, doing that correctly, and that municipalities where folks live are getting the getting the taxes from the purchases those folks make. So we're going to continue to try and simplify that process as much as possible for both businesses and citizens and municipalities. I'm sure you're all going to like that very much. Also working on water. I'm on the water committee that has been just looking at how seriously up a creek, no pun intended, we are with water on the Colorado and some of our other, Colorado is one of 2 states in the union that has only outflowing rivers and no inflowing rivers. And the other one is Hawaii for obvious reasons. So we're a headwater state and making sure that we are keeping the water we're entitled to, that we are using that as efficiently and effectively as possible, and making sure that those lower basin states like California are also taking some of the hit for this. You know, they are growing almonds, avocados, and alfalfa that is shipped to Saudi Arabia to feed their horses. It's not a great use of Colorado River water. So we want to make sure that the pain of the long-term drought that we're in, and probably the permanent reduction in rainfall, in moisture, in stream flow because of global warming, that it's not just Colorado that is trying to solve all of that. So we got a lot going on the waterfront. I'm working on a bill to make sure that every vote counts in presidential primaries, even if the person that was your top pick drops out. That is not quite ready for prime time, but I'm working on it. And then we passed a bill in my first year in the legislature requiring that pharmacies and insurance companies cover a full year of birth control, 12 months of birth control, so that women don't have to ask permission every month to not be pregnant. This was something that some folks in the state are now enjoying, but because of PBMs, pharmacy benefit management companies, not everyone in the state has access to this. So we made pharmacies do it, we made insurance companies do it, but PBMs are not complying with this. And so I've got a bill this year to say, no, really, when we passed this bipartisan bill in 2016, 2017, we meant it, and you have to actually fund this. So I've got a lot of different kinds of bills that I am working on this year, and going to do that all along with the budget. So we'll see how this all works out. It's my first year on the budget committee. I might be about enough more than I can chew, but I've got good people helping me out on all these bills too. I'm confident we're going to get at least most of them across the finish line.
See, you both give the appearance that you have an office for how much you're taking on. So
Come
that
on.
was my comment earlier. There's just so much.
Yeah, and can we both say, Senator Bridges, super thanks to the voters for reducing the income tax by 0.5 percentage point, and therefore reducing our budget by $450 million. That's
thank
awesome.
you. Thank you for bringing this up, Meg. The interesting thing is that Colorado's economy is booming in the recovery, right? We have more jobs available now than we had prior to the pandemic. So, like, from an economic perspective, the state's doing really well. The challenge is that the Tabor cap on government is tied to CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which is based on the price of washing machines, not wages. And the government doesn't really buy many washing machines, but we do pay a lot of people. That is the primary thing that we do as a state government. We pay wages. But because the Tabor cap is tied to that CPI instead of wage growth, we're in a situation where, despite all this money coming in, and despite the fact that our economy is doing so well, we're actually going to have to cut services. We're going to have to cut the services that are provided by the government because we can't keep up with the wages that we need to pay because of that Tabor cap. So that is a long-term. It's called a structural deficit. Every year, our Tabor cap goes like this, but our costs go like this. We're working on that. We're going to have to do something to fix that, or you're going to just slowly see more and more government services that people rely on taken away. That's not great.
Thank you, Senator Bridges and Representative Froelich. I was going to ask questions, but I think we may hold off until the end. There's issues that are important to Englewood that each member of council want to bring up. So I'll go ahead and just start with Member Noonekamp, who would like to talk about housing.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. And I will just kick us off to say that as a former legislative staffer, I can attest that their accounts of these sparse offices are indeed correct. A lot of unpaid hours in that job, unfortunately. I remember late nights. But thanks again for being here, and so much overlap in what you're sharing about are things obviously that we're working on and we care about for our residents. And so excited to dialogue a little bit about some of the issues. Top of mind for all of us is housing affordability, and members of this council are bringing a lot of different lived experience to this work, which is really important for how we represent our community. folks who, have lived in the city for a long time, and then also folks who are, were recent renters and first-time home buyers like myself, who kind of have experienced what this current market is like and how challenging it is for our residents, especially for access to home ownership and to build wealth in their communities. And so what we've been doing on that topic is we actually, through HB 21-1271, the Innovative Housing Planning Grant Program, we received funding from the state through that to do kind of a housing needs assessment for Englewood. So we've gotten that back now, and that's been a really helpful tool for how we move forward and some of the things that we're looking into. Concurrently with that, we've also been looking at a complete rewrite of our Unified Development Code. We haven't updated it in about, I think it's 18 years. Someone on the call can correct me, but it's kind of one of those generational things that we need to do. And so we're in that process right now. And we haven't taken a final vote or worked on final drafts, but the conversations so far and the feedback that we've given to staff are on a lot of topics that I'm sure will be familiar to you. Things like the expansion of ADUs, looking at parking minimums, the exploration of, duplexes, triplexes, how do we incentivize builders to build things at an affordable rate, and some of those tweaks that we can make from a zoning and from like a code perspective. And then with that process, after we kind of close that out, the next steps will be for us to look at what are the other solutions, both for middle income housing, but also those deeply affordable units that are kind of beyond what our current housing authority has the ability to do through the federal funding that we're getting, and looking at, different workforce housing projects, redevelopment projects within the community. We're really looking forward to seeing the rollout of Prop 123. What does that look like for localities? We're interested in how we would qualify for that, some of that funding, and our commitment to the work going forward. So I think the things that would be interesting to hear from you, and then also, as we continue to think about it, and as you think about Englewood in your work, or what are the other incentives or programs that municipalities can qualify for coming up maybe in this session, some of the things that, you alluded to, and then potentially what would be state requirements that you're considering for municipalities when it comes to affordable housing stock.
Madam Chair.
Who's the chair?
You mean me or do you mean Chelsea?
There you go.
I mean
Not
you.
me.
Oh. Do you want us to answer stuff, or you want to finish with your stuff?
Well, if you happen to have an answer available, if not, it's obviously just an item that we found important. It's a big issue that is going to take many sessions in order for us to actually discuss. So there's a report at this point.
Yeah, we should have sort of prefaced that the first 2 weeks of session. So we've been deep into our SMART hearings, which is our accountability hearings that we enter into the first couple of weeks of every session. And so we just had the presentation to the Joint Housing Committee from DOLA, our local affairs, who has been doling out those huge grants. And I should also say that our caucuses,
Cockeye?
Cockeye.
That doesn't sound right. Caucuses. I think the caucuses.
It's the Democrats that set up the task forces to decide how to use the federal money that was pouring in, right? So that initial setting up of those task forces is reflected our caucus's values. And of course, housing was one for 450 million and change. Housing was initially tasked with also addressing homelessness and our unhoused brothers and sisters. That became too much. There was, and we could have done housing for 10 times that amount. So a separate task force went in for homelessness for 220 million-ish. The third one was behavioral health and mental health services, and then and strategies, and then workforce had its own also meeting. So you can see that we're all on the same page and kind of where we need to go. And I hope we get to hear from your Tri-Cities homelessness plan, and we're really super impressed with what Englewood has been trying to do in terms of that. So anyway, yesterday's presentation, which I'm happy to share with you, the update from DOLA, a surprisingly small fraction of the money is encumbered. It is still being granted out. So I would
get it.
Yes. So I would say there's still 100 million or more out there. And it is broken up, as Senator Bridges kind of said. There are first-time home buyer, there's middle income home buying, there is renters assistance, and homelessness initiatives, and then incentives for construction, huge amount of money going into prefab, very exciting part of the equation, mobile home supports, which is also relevant. Do you have them, or are they all in Sheridan?
I think we have one, don't we?
I think one of your mobile home parks, one of our mobile home parks is in Englewood. I know that there are two big ones in Sheridan. But anyway, so hold me accountable for getting you that information.
And if I can add, I was on that interim housing committee, and we built as much flexibility into the proposals that came out of that as we could. No one in the country has fixed housing affordability, and we in Colorado have a real default to trusting local folks to know what it is that's best for your communities. And so as those proposals come in, it's basically we're going to take the best ideas, like whatever you can bring to the table, and whatever sort of creative solution you can offer. We want to make sure that as much flexibility as possible exists in those programs to give you the flexibility you need to solve whatever it is that you're trying to solve, and to use that creativity, right? I mean, we're not going to think of everything the right way at the state level, so we're trusting you to come up with ideas and compete for it. And one thing I will say for those codes, I recommend dropping the requirement that there be any kind of turf, any kind of Kentucky bluegrass in someone's yard. That's just not, we don't have the water for it. I sponsored a bill last year for a turf replacement incentive program. Get that out of your code if you can. I don't think it's good for water usage in Colorado. I know Englewood has its own water supply, so you guys might be like, we're going to keep growing our Kentucky bluegrass, but for the sake of the state, for the sake of just trying to preserve as much water as possible, just making a pitch, take that out. Oh, and the sales and use tax simplification task force, the reason I got put on that committee was because I got a text message from an Englewood resident who has an online store. Her name's Ann. She was selling seeds to someone in Boulder, and Boulder said, you're going to have to give us the 2 cents that you owe us in sales tax, you're going to have to buy a $25 business license. That was nuts. And so I did something about it, and I volunteered myself for chairing the SUTS committee. That's how things work in the legislature. But again, driven by an Englewood resident. There's a lot of great ideas come from Englewood.
Thank you, Senator Bridges. What is that, 1151 regarding the turf replacement? Something like that, but just had a
I don't know numbers, but
resident.
Yeah, exactly.
We've had discussions. So yeah, we had discussions in early December. So yeah, we're moving towards making that a reality here in
That's great.
As well. So
that's great. Good to hear.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Bridges. Up next is Member Woodward. You're going to give us the in and outs on PFAS, right? With a little bit of assistance from Director Van Rye.
Yeah, certainly hope I have a little assistance on this one. This is one that the more you find out about it, the more you find out how little you know. I can't even pronounce the actual name of PFAS. I'll let Peter do that later, but substances are a family of several thousand compounds that have been widely used in the manufacture of products, including waterproof and stain-resistant products, including Teflon. PFAS are incredibly persistent in the environment, and they are associated with human health impacts such as reproductive effects, developmental effects in children, and increased risks of cancer, high blood pressure, and heart disease. Publicly owned clean water utilities are passive receivers of PFAS and do not profit from the generation or sale of products that contain PFAS. Treatment facilities were not designed to treat PFAS, should not bear the responsibility for the costs of cleanup and treatment. Instead, a polluter pays model is appropriate. Federal response has been the US EPA's response to PFAS pollution concerns has been wide-ranging and extensive. In 2021, EPA's, what was it? Okay. Well, I've lost my page. So anyway, I'm going to go on to the state things. State of Colorado has led several efforts to reduce PFAS and its impacts. Colorado passed House Bill 1345 in 2022, which established restrictions on the use of PFAS and multiple categories of types of consumer products, such as carpeting, food, packaging, juvenile products, and cookware. The Colorado Water Quality Control Division is implementing PFAS requirements and discharge permits through the utilization of Water Quality Control Commission Policy 20-1. Permits requirements include monthly monitoring PFAS compounds, as well as PFAS source investigation studies. The WQCD is requiring monitoring by preparers of biosolids for PFAS in biosolids utilizing authority under Water Quality Control Commission Regulation number 64. South Platte Renew will begin sampling and analyzing its biosolids 6 times per year beginning this month of this year. So questions for you would be ensuring the cost for mitigation of PFAS problem is not borne primarily by the water providers such as South Platte Renew. Also ensuring future regulation eliminates the use of forever chemicals at the source, and ensuring that EPA limits for PFAS are reasonable and follow a well-engaged process for establishment. So, comments on that?
And then, Councilmember Ward.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think this is one of the areas where the Legislative Caucus can help us work with the federal government as well, because one of the issues that we're experiencing is an increase in federal mandates that increases our costs. And it's a problem that we're not responsible for, but because of the services that we provide to our residents, both with fresh water and sewage treatment, we are responsible for bearing the cost of cleaning up this issue. And that's due largely to federal regulations and an increasing federal regulatory environment.
Yeah, so that these are all great points and of great concern, and I'm sure our folks at South Platte Renew can tell you that the cleaning up is way harder than. So I think what we've been focused on is where we'll have the most impact, which is stopping PFAS from getting into the water system to start with. So that bill mentioned by Councilmember Woodward is 1345. That was a surprisingly tough fight, and we would have liked to have actually included a lot more things, but it was a bipartisan bill, and we did get it through. So that's the good news, and it does prohibit manufacture of products that contain these chemicals. And there's a long list. There was also a long list of exemptions as the sausage making on that bill went through. And then just our bill numbers start in the thousands. And so 1345 means pretty late in the game. So that one came through in the final weeks and was pretty tense. The other piece of the puzzle that's also interesting for Englewood as you go through your trash hauling, and I guess a single hauler is a never going to happen, I guess. But our our ongoing efforts to increase our recycling participation in Colorado. And so that bill was extended producer responsibility, which sort of the basic premise is that the producers of recyclable products, packaging, are responsible for a portion of putting those raw materials into the marketplace. And the overall vision is to create an end market where those recycled materials have a destination. And so we do well on glass. We're one of the few states that turns glass into a new bottle of beer in 3 weeks. So that's great. And a lot of states don't have any glass recycling at all, but we're terrible on plastics, and we just don't generate enough volume to attract end user businesses that are turning plastic recycled material into something else. So we're doing pretty well on aluminum, by the way. Ball Arena, Ball is sort of the aluminum king in Colorado, and they're really resurgent. And so if you've been to the Ball Arena, formerly Pepsi Center, and enjoyed a beverage, it's come in an aluminum reusable cup. So those are the two pieces. And then I had a third piece, which was involving fracking fluid and making sure that there's no PFAS in fracking fluid. So the oil and gas industry was adamant that there is no PFAS in fracking fluid. So I was able to present them with a wonderful opportunity to certify that. And they were so appreciative of me making them do that. But anyway, so yes, given our budget challenges, we can appreciate your budget challenges. I look forward to ongoing conversations. Maybe Senator Bridges has some ideas, being Mr. JBC now, but I don't know, because it is so difficult. The other source of PFAS is firefighter foam. And so we've banned PFAS in firefighter foam. So it's been sort of incremental in trying to get it out of the system. But you're right, it's everywhere and overly prevalent. There's another piece, and Maine has really been tackling this because they found such high levels of PFAS in their produce because it had been in the soil. And so even organic farmers were getting high levels of PFAS in their produce. And so that's a whole movement towards regenerative ag and how to eliminate these forever chemicals in your agricultural stream. Agricultural work in Colorado and changing those practices is probably one of the most difficult things you can undertake, but worthwhile. And of course, you don't have to be an agricultural community, and we are eating the produce of our agricultural communities, of course. And obviously it's in our water system. So I don't know, maybe Director Van Rye can kind of tell us what you would like to see from us that would help the process. It's a hugely technical undertaking and it's expensive, or what is the bottom line?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things real quickly. So we talked about, and I know Representative Bridges talked about at the beginning, the quantity of water issues that Colorado has. So we have a quantity issue because of what's going on with the Colorado River. The parallel that's sometimes not talked about as much is the quality issue, and this goes right to the quality issue. On the East Coast, as they talk about how to deal with PFAS, one of the response mechanisms is go find another source of water. Well, we know we can't do that here. So we have the sources that we have, and many of them are impacted by PFAS. And so I think our goal is that we continue to focus on eliminating their introduction into the environment so that it doesn't become an issue of all of us as residents and consumers of the public water system to pay to fix that problem. I think we're going to have to some degree, just because they've been used since the 1940s. But essentially, it's recognizing that balanced with the quantity is the quality aspect of how we address water as a whole in the state of Colorado. I think the other piece on this, which you touched on a little bit, is biosolids. So right now we use biosolids on farmland, And there is a certain amount of PFAS that ends up in that biosolids, which then gets uptaken by the plant. And so if the regulations come through that eliminate our ability to land apply biosolids, then now we're sending all that either to an incinerator, which then there's studies that say it releases it to the atmosphere, or it ends up in a landfill. And so now we've taken a regenerative process and now made it something that's no longer regenerative, which ultimately leads to the levels the EPA is talking about relative to PFAS on this. Right now, the most recent health advisory level is equivalent to 4 parts per quadrillion, which is 4 droplets in 4,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools, as the level that they say has a harmful effect. And that's below the detection limit of the labs that actually test for this. And so it's hard to say we're PFAS free if you can't even certify that you're something below the detection limit. EPA is moving forward right now with regulations that are building on that health advisory that came out middle of last year. And our concern is that those levels are going to be so low that they're impractical as it relates to what is just naturally in all of our blood today. Like, we all have it in our blood supplies today because it is so ubiquitous in everything that we interface with. So I think those are probably the three main areas that we need to. This is going to be a multi-year issue to solve, but those are some of the things that we want to make sure are considered.
Thank you, Director. I know that we have a hard stop at the top of the hour. There's 4 more items that we want to get through. I'm going to just ask members of council to go quickly through those 4, and then we'll allow our Representative Froelich and Senator Bridges to answer or provide any feedback regarding those 4. Cut us off at 2:55, and then leave the last 5 minutes for questions and answers and next steps. So. So I'll pass it to Member Russell, Director Van Rye. Obviously, this is flushable wipes. Representative Froelich, you kind of mentioned it earlier in the discussion. So, Member Russell, anything that you want to add to the flushable wipes?
The only question I have, really, I am concerned. Any opinions that I share are my own opinions. Mm-hmm. Most of these issues have not been vetted with the entire council. They're issues that we need to talk about. So any issues that I bring up would be my concern. It's not representative of the citizenry of the city. And even some of the stuff we've talked about hasn't been put out for public hearing yet. So we don't really know how much public support there is for some of this. I know, Representative Froelich, that you brought up about flushable wipes. And I mean, the only ones I've ever seen, they're not flushable. And most people I talk to know they're not flushable, but things get flushed down the toilet that don't belong flushed down the toilet. And so what is the plan really to deal with this?
I could just say that they're marketed as flushable. And so it's a deceptive trade practices concept that you can't say flushable big on the packaging. Is the initial thought.
Thank you, okay. Representative Froelich. And thank you, Member Russell. I got the next one, which is regarding alcohol regulation in the right-of-way. Obviously, we relaxed that during the early days of COVID, just giving local control back to the cities to see how to use the right-of-way to benefit our businesses really here in the city of Englewood is the concern on my end. So just seeing something like that come forward here in the next year or 2 is something that we would be interested in.
Real quick, completely support that. There is a committee right now looking at all of our alcohol laws, and Englewood resident Erica Zerke is on that committee. So give her a call.
There we go. Perfect. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll let you speak to the next 2.
Yeah, so Senator Bridges, you said 2 of my favorite words earlier during your introduction: local control. So I think these issues deal mostly with local control. Recently, to give a little background, we had a 5G location installed in a neighborhood just a few blocks away from my house, and the neighbors were not happy about it. And so this resulted in significant discussion over use of the public right-of-way, specifically as it relates to cell communication and cellular devices in the right-of-way, how they access the right-of-way, and what the state requires of us and what the federal government requires of us. And essentially, we are very limited in our ability to regulate the placement of those locations. And it has caused some disruption in our community here. Similarly, we understand there's a bill pending on micro trenching, which similarly deals with the public right-of-way and would essentially allow free access to our public right-of-way owned by the people of Englewood without our authorization or authority, very limited regulatory authority on our part. So this is my plea as a representative of constituents who are quite upset about use of the public right-of-way, particularly as it relates to telecommunications, to restore some added local control to this process, to increase our negotiating power with the telecom providers, and ensure that when these locations go up, we know that there's benefit to the people because, I like it when my cell phone connects, but there should also be some added benefit in the form of, either economic benefit or profit to the residents because those locations are going up on property that we own and for the purpose of a corporation generating profit.
And Senator Bridges, Representative Froelich, is there anything that you want to add over the last, over the next 2 minutes?
I think I was in the thick of it on that. This is the AT&T one by our school. Yeah. So trying to work with the residents on AT&T, and we could talk more about that, but they felt like they had gone through the process that they were supposed to go through in Englewood. So there may be an opportunity for Englewood to increase its permitting processes to make it more difficult. The micro trench, I see them as slightly different in that the cell towers are really a much bigger invasion, and there were concerns about health risks and that sort of thing. Micro trenching is like a 2-hour boom boom thing but again, it is a conflict with local control. So that is coming to our committee.
I'll also just say, and this is in the interest of full transparency, and you guys won't like this. The housing discussions that the governor is having, there's discussion about matters of statewide concern. When we have communities that say no more growth, that causes Colorado to be more expensive. It makes it so that there aren't places for middle income folks to live, and it means that homelessness goes up. And so we have an obligation, I think, at a statewide level to make sure that folks can afford to live where they work. And those challenges are really similar across our state, even from mountain resort communities to Eastern Plains communities. There are really similar challenges that I think we're going to have to address at a state level. Now, I want to make it clear, I look forward to working with you all on those. There may be ways to do this that you all have a preference for. There may be things that you really don't like that we don't need and can take out. So I want to continue the dialogue with all of you on this, but there will for sure be dialogue around these issues moving forward this session because Colorado is becoming unaffordable, and that's just not something that any of us are going to stand by and accept. And I know that all of you feel the same way about that. You just probably won't like the solutions that we have. So let's talk. Let's find a way forward on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I think something that got missed on the telecommunications discussion is that, there is both state and federal law that prohibits the city of Englewood from preventing a telecom provider from installing a 5G cell anywhere in the city. So we can permit them, but they tell us where they go. And that's the process
okay.
that
That's
we have
key.
right now.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other questions from members of council? Anything else from Senator Bridges, Representative Froelich that we may have missed, or any questions that you happen to have for us?
I know that both Senator Bridges and I publish our cell phone numbers pretty routinely. So I looked for a chat. I don't think there is a chat, but I will make sure that you guys, I generally say text is best because I get a full voicemail box and balls get dropped, and that's on me. But so if I have a text, I have a written accountability measure. Of course, email always goes to my enormous staff and gets processed. But I do want you're my biggest municipality. I'm not able to really work closely with Denver for a variety of reasons. I love Sheridan too, and I have an open door policy with Sheridan, and then Cherry Hills just has very different issues. So so I really look you're it for me. Senator Bridges has a broader double the size district and the lovely Greenwood Village as well.
And I still love Englewood just as much as you do, Meg.
we're I would say prejudiced almost. But anyway, so just I can't emphasize that enough. And if I say something like, let me get you that DOLA presentation, and then a week goes by, just say, hey, you said you would give me that DOLA presentation. And I'm happy to put that on the to-do list. And then if you have questions about it, I found out something in my first weeks as a legislator. We don't have very many perks. We get some cool stuff, but one of them is that when we make an inquiry of a department, they are required to reply to us in 24 hours, which I like. So that's fun.
24? They definitely don't. They don't get back to me in 24. They get back a little faster now that I'm on JBC, but
yeah,
24.
Yeah. So maybe there's some leeway for snow days or holidays or something, or when you make the request. But anyway, that is one thing that we can get is information. So and we are allowed to make research inquiries too. So Councilmember Ward, let's make an inquiry on what the interplay is between federal and state regulations on the placement of cell phone towers, and where can you press the lever and exert some neighborhood input. And I know that process was painful for the neighborhood, and that's not anything we want.
That would be awesome. And our telecommunications council, Attorney Niles might be able to elaborate on this a little bit more, but they specifically referenced a state law that was passed just a short time ago, not too long ago, that mirrors the federal regulation that says that a municipality can't deny.
So Attorney Niles, you can kind of help us with that. And I know that we're also balancing the desire of folks for more broadband and more cell towers and better reception. And so you hear it from that end as well. Yeah.
I would just also add in response.
Sorry, go ahead.
Your offer for information, which is so helpful, but also to keep Englewood aware of what maybe we need to know that's happening under the Gold Dome. Obviously, we're engaging with our partners at CML, but if there's an opportunity where you think Englewood should be at the table, or maybe an incentive or something that we should be aware of, I think that flow of information is really helpful.
Yeah.
I'll add to that. I think all of you have my cell phone. If you don't, it's on my website. And I know this is being broadcast on YouTube, but I put my cell phone number on literally everything I send out. It's 303-358-5551. Rita, I see you writing down.
That sounds like a fake number, Senator Bridges.
I've had that number. I got it at the Verizon store outside Park Meadows in like the late 90s. 303-358-5551. In fact, I went back to that store to try and switch back to Verizon, and they said, I'm sorry, we can't move your number. That didn't make any sense. Anyway, my cell phone number is out there. Call me if anything comes up. And this is the ask I have is, so often in this job, folks assume the absolute worst. You'll hear a rumor and you'll go, oh, man, I can't believe Meg and Jeff are doing that. And you'll get really angry and you'll tell your friends, and then we'll be flooded with phone calls or emails that just aren't true. So before you go to DEFCON, before you get really angry, just give us a call. Let us know. Give us a chance to have that conversation. We are here to work for the people that sent us over to the Gold Dome, and we are always open to listen. Both Meg and I have that open door policy for anyone who wants to talk.
Well, Senator
even
Bridges,
people we disagree with.
And I know we're at our hard stop. I just held my 54th, I think, town hall The mayor has come before visited us, and we welcome our municipal partners. And our next one, I don't know if Director Van Rye knows this, but it's on water, and we're inviting South Platte on February 12th, as well as state water people to talk about our supply challenges. And Senator Bridges is going to come if he can, February 12th.
Well, Senator Bridges, Representative Froelich, thank you very much. Let's continue this dialogue. I think City Manager Lewis, we do have a list of asks that we can send over to both Senator Bridges and Representative Froelich. But again, thank you very much. We'll figure out a way how to better communicate here in 2023. And again, thank you very much for everything that you're doing for the City of Englewood and the state.
Happy snow day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Happy snow day. Bye-bye, everyone.